As the summer campaign season winds down, peace talks are on the menu. Maybe. India might be a party Russia and Ukraine can agree to end the Ukraine war. The Ukraine war has seen a flurry of what appears to be escalatory activities as the summer offensive season is coming to a close. The Russians are pushing hard into the Donbas and have seized 390 square miles or 1,000 square kilometers from the beginning of August to the first week of September. Crucially, Russian forces are advancing ever closer to the town of Pokrovsk, which is a strategically important rail and road hub and is a key logistics position to maintain Ukrainian armed forces. The loss of Pokrovsk would create serious constraints in maintaining Ukrainian armed forces positions in a large part of the Donbas. The Ukrainians, for their part, continue to occupy 480 square miles or 1,250 square kilometers of Russian territory in the Kursk region. The Ukraine-Kursk operation abruptly ended low-profile negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, hosted by Qatar, to come to an agreement to end attacks on each other's energy infrastructure. This week, there has also been speculation that the United States will remove all restrictions on U.S.-made weapons donated to Ukraine, which will allow Ukraine to attack targets deep into Russia. Despite all these escalations, there is a flurry of diplomatic activity to bring the Ukraine and Russians face-to-face to start negotiating an end to the war. Germany has been a vocal supporter of the Ukraine cause and need to support it as it resists the Russian invasion. Germany, under the leadership of Chancellor Olaf Scholz, has adopted a cautious approach, primarily to avoid provoking Russia, which could escalate and spread the war, and to avoid allowing Ukraine to use German-donated weapons for internal attacks within Russia outside of Kharkiv. Chancellor Scholz has several reasons for his cautious approach. The Russian invasion of Ukraine in February 2022 marked the beginning of finally addressing the decades-long neglect of the Bundeswehr inadequate preparedness. It has also shipped a significant portion of its stockpile to Ukraine, and this has further degraded the ability to conduct military operations. Addressing preparedness will take time, and there are political questions about Germany's willingness to maintain defense spending above the 2% GDP NATO target for more than a decade, compensating for decades of neglect. Chancellor Scholz and his political coalition need to address the financial realities in Germany's budget, which include increased defense spending and its support for Ukraine. Germany has already decided to reduce its financial support for Ukraine next year, citing the loan using the interest from frozen Russian assets in the West as justification to reduce its support to Ukraine. The local elections in the eastern part of the country demonstrated a weakness in its coalition, as immigration and the continuation of the war were driving factors. As Chancellor Scholz met with Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky in Frankfurt in early September, he was under financial and domestic political pressure to accelerate the peace process and find a way forward to negotiate with Russia to end the war. Turkish President Erdogan has maintained positive relations with both Russia and Ukraine, despite being public in his criticism of Russia for invading Ukraine. President Erdogan has formulated a blueprint for a ceasefire in 2022, which appears to be in principle acceptable to both Ukraine and Russia, despite the fact that neither party has faced any pressure to negotiate an end to the fighting. President Erdogan was also instrumental in negotiating the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which allowed the distribution and export of Ukrainian grain through the Black Sea without Russia attacking shipments. This agreement is no longer in force. He has also been a vocal proponent of negotiating an end to the war, which includes occasional contacts with both Russia and Ukraine to seek negotiations. This week, President Erdogan created controversy over peace terms when he addressed a Crimean platform summit and stated that Crimea must be returned to Ukraine and Russia must return all territory in the Donbas that it annexed into Russia in September 2022. This appears to be a blow to its relations with Russian President Vladimir Putin, as he has taken a clear position that aligns with President Zelensky's 10-point peace plan. which calls for the return of this territory. President Erdogan's statement seems to be a political decision to play both sides between Russia and Ukraine and their supporters. Turkey has publicly expressed its interest in joining the Russian-led BRICS organization of developing economies, and BRICS leaders will review his application during their meeting in Russia in October. Turkey joining BRICS would be a publicity win for Putin and a significant complication for NATO. By providing Russia with a public relations victory and seemingly weakening NATO's unity, Turkey is simultaneously appeasing European hardline proponents of the Ukraine war by openly supporting a crucial Ukrainian peace demand that peace has to be rejected. Excuse me. This could be President Erdogan's simple amateur political grandstanding, but he has demonstrated some political adeptness in the past by using both Mussolini-like grandstanding and quiet diplomacy. When combined, the announcement about Donbas and Ukraine, along with the desire to join BRICS, suggests a strategy for Turkey to move away from the Western camp in a bipolar world. Alternatively, one could interpret it as a strategic move to convince the European Union to accept its application, which has been open since 2005. The reason may not be clear, but the decision to join BRICS and call for peace in Ukraine with terms within a week of each other is more than a simple coincidence. The Ukrainians want to open direct peace talks with Russia, and Russia seems to give indications that it is willing to negotiate. The challenge lies in finding a trustworthy party that both Ukraine and Russia can rely and trust. Ukraine, for example, is unlikely to trust China to lead negotiations because of its overt support for Russia in the war. Russia does not trust the G7 countries or Switzerland because they believe they are anti-Russian. Both countries' positions can be seen as justifiable as the world has divided up into camps of support for one side or the other in the war. India appears to be the most likely leader of peace talks, which could break the impasse over finding an arbiter. Despite international sanctions, India has maintained relations with Russia and bought Russian oil at a discount. India has also maintained a favorable relationship with the Western Bloc, mainly in its Indo-Pacific policies in support of the U.S.-led efforts to deter Chinese aggression in the region. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited the Ukraine and Russia in August, and India has the full support of Ukraine to play a role in starting negotiations. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni has also called on India to lead negotiations to end the war. India not only maintains good relations with both countries, but also boasts the international stature of being a large economy with significant influence in Asia. It is an emerging economy that is growing more influential, often at the expense of China. It is a member of BRICS, but is also a bridge with the U.S. to improve relations with the global South and to serve as a security counterweight to China's ambitions in the Indo-Pacific. Since independence, India has maintained a tradition of avoiding foreign alliances, positioning itself as a country that fosters positive relations with all sides of the polarized world for the most part. This often annoys the bipolar players, but India has consistently acted in its own interests, not as a proxy for anyone else's. Its international stature and reputation appear to make India a country that can break the impasse and at least get peace negotiations started and on a sustainable path. Neither Russia or Ukraine has agreed to sit down for discussions, but neither have rejected talks this time around. This seems to be an indication that both sides are finally ready to start talking about ending the war. Both parties have firmly established positions that they have publicly rejected. Obtaining peace will not be easy, therefore, but despite their publicly entrenched positions, both sides appear to be on the verge of agreeing to finally negotiate and potentially end the war by 2025 or within 2025. This was predicted as a time when a negotiated settlement would be reached, as the continued war and its costs, not just financial ones, would be too much for each society to bear.